Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of On the Trail with Felix and Tony. I'm Felix Camacho, former governor of Guam, and candidate for the upcoming 2022 gubernatorial election. Joining me every week and every moment on the trail of the 2022 campaign is my running mate, Senator Tony Ada. On the trail, you will get a glimpse into our journey as we make our bid for Adelup. Our listeners will get an insight into our platform, our thoughts on the issues that our island faces, and everything upcoming on the trail to the 2022 primary and general election. So, Tony, why don't you introduce yourself and perhaps give our listeners some background on who you are and what's it all about?
Thank you, Governor. I appreciate that. Well, to our audience, our listening audience and viewing audience at that, I'm Tony Ada. I'm the youngest son of Ben and Teresita Ada. I got 9 siblings. My sister Teresa is the youngest. And, when I was growing up and how I became Tony Ada was actually all of my brothers, including my dad, is all named Vicente. So it was kind of hard in the family. Can I speak to Vicente? So we all went by our middle name. So every single one of us had a middle name. Joseph, John, Pete, Eddie, Rick, and myself, Anthony. So in my first run as senator, Anthony was just a little bit too long on a special election. We had that special election that we came up with. So we went with the shorter version of Anthony. We went to Tony. And that's how Tony became Tony Ada, right? From Anthony to Tony. And but we still, to this day now, need to use our legal name, Vicente Anthony, and then still Tony Ada. But my dad, Ben and Terry Ada, they come from very humble beginnings. My dad was a military veteran in the Air Force, and then he, after serving 10 years, he decided to come back home, opened up our family business, the Ada's Mortuary in Sinahanya, and went from there. He got into politics at a very young age as well, and he served in the, I believe it was the 11th to the 14th Guam legislatures. And he went on, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to see what I can do with my dad, right? And I turned around and I joined the military at a very young age. I was 18 when I left the island. I got stationed in very, very good places. Fort Campbell, Kentucky, home of the 101st Aviation, 101st Division. I got stationed in Germany, in Mannheim at the 70th Trans Battalion. I was in aviation maintenance. And then I got stationed at Fort Drum, New York, 10th Mountain Division. All very good duty stations. But after 6 years, I decided, you know what, I'm going to come home. And it was just that one leave that my transition from Germany to New York, where the kids and Annette came home, and they came for leave, and my kids said, wow, they didn't realize how many first cousins they had, how much family they had. Being a military dependent, everyone becomes an auntie or an uncle or, a friend in one way or another because of the military connections that we have. So them coming home to see our family and the amount of first cousins that they had, they were just truly amazed. And I said, man, this is something I got to think about in raising my family and bringing my family home. So I have 4 children. My oldest is Leilani. My son, we call him Boo, but his name is Vicente as well. And then Ali and Amaya. I've been married to my wife Annette we celebrate our 36th anniversary coming up August 17th. So, we've been together quite a long time in our very young age down to growing old together. And we're really just blessed to have our children. And, we have one grandson now. His name as well, Vicente. So we call him Ryan. So everybody seems to go by the middle names, right? The Vicente. And so his name is Ryan. And it's amazing that how our families just come about. So anyway, what I did was I got into the family business after I got out of the military, and I became I moved up the ranks from the floor sweeper to the vice president of the company. And for the past 20 years now, I've been the vice president of Ada's Mortuary, doing the things that our family does best, and that's caring for other families in their time of need. I've done many things in addition to that, and in private life, right? Then I decided to join, and my brother-in-law Danny, it was so funny because I would always complain to him, "Hey, how come this? How come that? Why are we? Why is the government doing this, or why is the government doing that?" And he would turn around and said, "Why don't you do something about it? Why don't you step up to the plate, do something about it? You always have something to say." So we went on a trip, and I just called home and I said, "Hey, Dad, just wanted to know what's your thoughts if I was to run for senator?" He goes, "I don't know. That's up to you, son. You decide." So I said, "Okay, thank you." Next thing you know, Annette calls me up. She goes, "I don't know, but you better check your father." I said, "Why is that?" Because he went down to the election commission and picked you up a packet. I said, "He did what?" He goes, "He went down to the election commission and he picked you up a packet." I said, "Oh my goodness." And when I got home from my trip, I said, "Dad, I was just asking." He goes, "Oh no, I just picked it up just in case, you wanted to do something." So, that's how politics actually in my time has come up, right? And, it's something that my dad has always, I know he just wanted who's going to be taking after him, and, being there not just for the families that we serve, but now being there for the island community, right? And how can we be public servants? So, it just kind of rolls into, I served in the military, I served in our family business, and then I served as a public servant for our island community. And it just went from there. I got elected into the 30th Guam legislature in a special election. Wow. And I served several terms. And during my terms in the legislature, I've introduced very key legislations. Simple legislations like when you go and register your car. Did you know that if you buy a brand new car, that you don't have to get it inspected for the first 3 years?
That's right. Thank you.
Yeah, that's because I introduced that piece of legislation. It didn't make sense. You bought a brand new car. It has warranty for the first 36 months, bumper to bumper. Mm-hmm. So why do we have to get it inspected the first 3 years? So that's right. We turned around and said, okay, let's introduce legislation that will let they don't have to get it inspected. It gets renewed, but not inspected the first 3 years. Everything to gift certificates that that when you buy a gift certificate, that it is valid for a minimum of 5 years. Before, what they would do is say, so Christmas comes around, you go and you buy a gift certificate, and what do they do? Expiration in 90 days. So, by March, it expires. No more. Gift certificates are valid for a minimum of 5 years. Wow. So if you got a gift certificate that Joanne bought you like 4 years ago and it's stuck in a drawer, look for it because it's still valid.
As a matter of fact, after Liberation Day Parade, we were so exhausted. She says, I have a couple of gift certificates. We should go and get a nice foot massage. And she says, I think it's expired, but I remember there's a law that was passed, so thank you. Absolutely. Because it was expired, but they honored it without question. Absolutely. So thank you, Senator.
And that's what it's about, right? Doing things for our people, because people, when they gave you the $100 to buy that gift certificate, you never saw an expiration date on that $100, right? So that gift certificate, actually, when I first introduced it, had no expiration date. Wow. But then, my colleagues in the legislature says, we can't do that. I said, why not? A person went in there in good faith with good money to buy that gift certificate. So, but, I compromised on 5 years.
I'm surprised they didn't say, well, because of the rate of inflation, it's going to devalue the value of that certificate. Yeah. So, but glad they didn't do that.
Yeah. So, and then from that, I introduced carjacking,
wow.
home invasion, and my key legislation was the Castle Doctrine.
Castle Doctrine.
So, over the legislative terms, I've really done a lot of things for our community, and amazing. I continue to look for things to do for our community, and stepping up to the plate to run as your running mate in
Thank you for
the 2022 election for our gubernatorial. It's exciting. It's very exciting, and I look forward to going through this transition with you. And we're gonna be there, and I know that we'll be able to take and guide our island in the direction that we know is going to be beneficial to our people and to our island. That's just a little bit about myself, and I just wanted to turn it back to you, Governor, and ask you to please expand on your experiences, not just as a senator, but in your term as governor from, I believe it was 2003 to 2011. Yes. And please, let our listening audience, our viewing audience know that, what you've done in the past and what we're going to do when we get there in the future.
Well, just a bit on myself. I was born, of all things, my father was in the U.S. Army. He was drafted during the Korean War, and he had come out of dental school out of Marquette University, set up at the Catholic Medical Center, and was a practicing dentist. But the Korean War breaks out, and he was drafted in. He served as a captain in the U.S. Army, and he was part of, while he was stationed in Camp Zama, I was then born there in Camp Zama, Japan, on a U.S. Army base. And with that, of course, I believe that the point in time came when he had to re-op and continue on, even with a promotion. But my mother said, "Listen, I'd prefer we go back home to Guam." And so with that, after his first stint, he left the Army, and we moved back to Guam and set up practice. So I'm the second eldest of 7 children. In fact, we've got 6 boys and 1 girl. My sister is the incumbent Senator Mary Camacho Torres. Right. And so there are 2 of us that have opted to get into public service.
I'm currently serving with her.
Yes,
and privilege and honor to be serving with her.
Yeah, it's unfortunate she has decided not to continue on, but I understand her obligations to family. With me getting into politics, the journey really began when I had come back from graduating in Marquette University in 1980. My father just passed away in December of 79. And it was then that my mother asked me, "Would you please come back home and help me with the family? You've got a lot of younger brothers that are here." And at that point in time, I had 3 younger brothers that were still here, or 4 really. So I said, yes, I'll come back. I finished up my studies, graduated on time, arrived back on Guam the summer of 1980. I began work with Pacific Financial, working with my uncle Eduardo Camacho at PFC. After a couple of years, having gotten married to my wife, Joanne, we had a young family starting up, and the opportunities for pay weren't all that great. I was started off at $850 gross. I mean, that was a starting pay, $850 a month.
Was that when minimum wage was $3.35 an hour?
It was much less than that. And so an opportunity came. I went and applied for a job with IBM Corporation, and began working there. Part of the goal was coming from a small privately run finance company. I was running insurance. And I really enjoyed that, but I wanted to understand more of the corporate world, corporate international groups. So I jumped at the opportunity to work with IBM. After a while, there were several of my colleagues there, my coworkers, namely John Titano, who said, "Felix, I think you have a future in public service. I've observed you, and you should run. You should get out and begin to work for the government of Guam, and someday run for politics." And I took him up on that, but I recall sitting at my desk and pulling out a sheet of paper, and I began to write down. I took out pen and paper and wrote down my short-term, my mid-term, and my long-term goals. And I committed to that. And at that time, the short-term goal was to get into Gov Guam, understand a bit of the government business and how it operates. From there, run for senator, and then from there, long-term, run for governor. I wrote that down. And I committed to it. I committed to it in prayer, and left the rest up to the good Lord to show me the way. I began when working for the Joe Ada and Frank Blas administration. And they brought me on board as a deputy chief at then it was called Public Utility Agency of Guam, working with Tony Blas as the director. After 6 months, they asked me would I take on the job at Civil Service Commission as executive director. It was approved by the board, and I began that. And really began to understand all the issues of the personnel, issues within the government of Guam. We handled compensation, we handled adverse action, we handled EEO, and it was a very good introduction to the inner workings of the personnel within Gov Guam and the many issues, coming to understand that it's not necessarily the individual within the government of Guam where any issue may lie. It is more with the system they're working in that needs fixing. Mm-hmm. And that got me really interested in thinking, well, maybe then I can get involved in the lawmaking aspect of it, and decided to run for governor. And I did so in 92. I was one of only 3 that made it in that year. And back then there were 21 senators.
I remember that.
So the 3 that made it in were the late Ben Pangilinan, Tom Ada, and myself. So we were the only 3 incoming freshmen out of 21. And then, of course, from there were wholesale changes that occurred with other elections. In 1998, Governor Joe Ada asked me would I run with him as his lieutenant governor candidate. And we went up against Madeline Berdalio and, of course, Carl Gutierrez. We were unsuccessful in that. We contested the election. It went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. They still prevailed. And so I went back into the private sector, started a company called QuickSpace with Peter Gill. Mm-hmm. And we founded that on a couple of, I think it was $3,000 each and a couple of cell phones and pagers. But that's when we began that business. I then eventually got back into the legislature in 2000 and decided, well, I learned a lot in the run for governor and lieutenant governor with Joe Ada. I've had 4 terms under my belt. I'm going to give it a go. And that's when I decided to run for governor. It took a lot of prayer and contemplation, but I committed to it. Kaleo Moylan agreed to run with me. And it was so nice in that the fact that my father, the late Governor Carlos Camacho, and his father, Kurt Moylan, were governor and lieutenant governor. And I said, wouldn't it be amazing that the 2 sons would come together and run as a team? And we did successfully. After that, of course, I then ran with Dr. Mike Cruz.
But that first term was very, you came in after a typhoon, several typhoons, as a matter of fact, right, sir?
It was a very, very trying time because in July of 2002, while Carl was still governor, Typhoon Chataan hit island and it devastated. It was a Category 4 typhoon. And then December 8th, after the election comes, Typhoon Pongsonwa comes, and everything that was shaken loose and not destroyed was obliterated with Pongsonwa coming in with an island totally devastated. Our opponents, I remember, were teasing me, hey, I'd like to congratulate you, but I give you my condolences because you're never going to recover from this. And but we did. And we rolled up our sleeves and began to work and appointed a very young cabinet at that time. Mm-hmm. But people that were visionaries and had the energy and drive to do everything we could. And we worked together, with the community hand in hand. And we're able to pull out of it and develop and build. And beyond that, of course, then we were succeeded after 8 years of governance by Eddie Calvo, who continued that. And so I, in my decision to run again, of course, I was now retired. I had run intermittently somewhere in between in 2016 for Congress against Madeline unsuccessfully. And I thought, okay, I think I'll give it. I'll go into full retirement now. I was happy with that, but many people through the years had always asked me, would you consider coming back? I said, I'm retired now. I believe that I should let the others step up and offer themselves to run as a governor, lieutenant governor, and maybe help along the way. But the call had been consistent, and I finally agreed with some individuals that I would take it to prayer. And they said, would you just take it to prayer and fast and pray and seek guidance from the Lord to see if this is something that you ought to do. Well, after 3 weeks of this, 21 days of fasting and prayer, I then knew in my heart that I should step out of my comfort zone and offer myself as a candidate for governor. And it was for such a time as this, because oftentimes when you are called to step up and show up and participate, if not you, the Lord will call someone else. And whatever his intentions or wills or will or purpose was for that time might be delayed. And I felt I would rather be obedient than not in following what I felt was a cause for such a time as this to offer myself. And then you came. And I began by going through all the list of those within our party that I would need to speak to. I went to the late chairman, Phil Flores, and we talked about it. He says, would you like to meet with Eddie? I said, absolutely. He set up the lunch. We met. I then reached out to Kaleo. We had a great talk. I reached out to Mike Cruz. We had a great talk. I reached out to Frank Blas, who was also considering a run for this. And I have to give my much credit to Senator Frank Blas, because he said, I have every intention to run, but if you decide you want to, I'll step aside and I'll support you. I'll commit to supporting you. But if you decide not to, then I will run, and I ask for your support. And so we shook on it. And then when it came to, who would run for lieutenant governor, again, I took it to prayer, and I brought it to the family. We discussed the potential running mates who might be considered. And when your name came up, Joanne and my children were quite happy. And they said, absolutely. In fact, Joanne was so excited, saying, I'd love to work with Annette, on this. And we get along so well. And of course, with their blessings. And it did take a while, for them to come around. There was a lot of resistance saying, Dad, don't run. You've been there. You've done your time. You've committed already. We've all sacrificed. We paid the price. It's time to enjoy your life, but and enjoy your retirement. But I felt otherwise. I said, no, I can't go on with my life thinking if I had an opportunity to offer myself as a candidate and I walked away from that, I would always live the rest of my life looking back thinking, what if?
Right.
What if I did offer myself? What if I could have made a difference along with my running mate, the lieutenant governor? Would I live a life of regret, or would I now take a step of obedience for such a time as this and say, yes, Lord, I'll do it, and not for me, but for your glory, for your good, because there's certainly nothing I need at this point and stage in my life, and so here we are. And when your name came up, I remember in prayer it was, I'm going to ask Tony. If he says anything other than yes, then I will know that it's time to move on to the next person on the list. And when I did ask you, would you consider running with me? You said yes. You didn't say, let me think about it. Let me bring this to my family. Let me ask my wife first. Let me bring it to a committee. Immediately you said yes.
And then I said,
Then you said,
let me check my wife.
let me check to the family. Let me check with Annette.
Let me check
So
my
your
wife.
timing and everything your protocol was so perfect. Thank you.
I just wanted to put that in there because
And so here we are, people of Guam. We've been on the campaign trail. We've announced our candidacy. And we're very excited as we have gone about the community and
listening to everyone out there.
listening to everyone. And
Coming
Tony,
up with our platform and
he's come on in now. Yeah.
right, coming up with our platform and introducing our platform. We had the launch of our platform a couple of weeks ago, and if I may, Gov, I just want to read our preamble to our platform
Absolutely.
and what it's about. So the Camacho Ada 2022 platform is a statement of who we are and our vision for Guam. The platform is a result of conversations, discussions, and thought-provoking ideas with residents across our community, with a focus on what our people believe is the direction and the way forward for Guam now and into the foreseeable future. Our island faces unprecedented uncertainty with great fiscal, social, and economic challenges, and over the past 2.5 years have suffered through the longest and most severe economic downturn in our island's recent history. Many of our people have experienced the burden of lost jobs, lost homes, and lost hopes. Meanwhile, the government of Guam has expanded its size and scope. Put simply, these times have called for trustworthy leadership and honest talk about the challenges we face at every level of our island community. Our island and our people cannot afford the status quo. We must begin anew with profound changes in the way government operates, the way it budgets, taxes, and regulates. That is a choice facing the people of Guam this November. Every voter will be asked to choose between the status quo of rising crime and a cost of living that is out of control, or a proven and tested leadership with a plan for our island where every Guamanian who values freedom, works hard, dreams big, can achieve anything he or she wants. This platform affirms that Guam has been and should be a place where our people can turn their dreams into reality. And so it will be again if we return government to its proper role, making it work better and accountable for the people of Guam.
Amen.
You know, Gov, we've listened, we had, and that's what's beautiful about our platform, is that we brought in different segments of the community to build this living document on how we're going to be able to move it. And it's not set in stone. And that's why we continue to go out there and talk with our people to see what is on their minds, what's of concern to them, so that we can continue to build this platform to make Guam a better place to live. And, we've done that over the past couple of months, and we're going to continue to do that.
Yes, I'm excited about that. And I'm just reminded about this past Liberation Day. I think it's the first time after a couple of years that the community has come out and they've been able to celebrate the traditional pop-up tents, the barbecues that are going, the hospitality of inviting people walking by. Hey, come on in and have a bite. You want something to drink? But just to be out there celebrating and also remembering the sacrifices that were made by the greatest generation 78 years ago. Grateful again to the American troops that came and liberated our island of Guam, but remembering our Manamko, our elderly that have suffered. My mom is, Senator, she's 93 years old right now, and God willing, she makes it to 94 this year. But Mom was a young girl at that time when the war broke out, and of course, as she has aged in time, she has begun to reveal things that she kept within, stories and some atrocities that she's suffered and even witnessed. And that generation is passing on. And the key is that we not forget the sacrifices made by generations that have come before us. And I think that's really critical. We, as we move forward in time right now, and again, look at the island and the situation we're in, understanding the resilience of our people, the ability to overcome obstacles, but really respecting the freedoms that we enjoy, that maybe generations now have taken for granted. I think it's really, really important. I think of our parents' generation that left the island with limited resources in search of a better education to come back and contribute to our island again. And
yeah, definitely.
And that's exactly what they did. What saddens me now is that because of the economic situation that we're in, we're seeing families leaving. We talk about in the past the great brain drain, where some of the best and brightest of our youth would seek a higher education. If they couldn't afford to go to college, they'd join the U.S. military, the armed forces, to get off the island and learn a skill, learn a trade, make a career of it, and many of them have never come back. But other generations have, their children, their grandchildren. Sean is a good example of that.
Yeah.
Sean Gamatato. And so But people are now not leaving island for opportunity, but they're leaving island because there is no opportunity to provide for their families. And that's what saddens many a family, that families are now being broken apart, grandchildren, children are leaving, and perhaps never to come back. So we have to do something about it. And government is not the only solution. We all have to play our part. We all have to show up, and we all have to contribute. And what I like about our platform is not only do we focus in on health, education, public safety, which is in every platform, the running of government, but we've also included faith. Mm-hmm. We've included family. Well, how is government going to get involved in that? We'll do our part and let them do their part, and find ways that we can work cohesively for the betterment of our island and our people. So I'm really excited about how this can begin, because there are so many resources in our community, and there's so many issues that need to be resolved. But by working together and not just relying on government, but relying on aspects of our and segments of our community, we can all make this happen.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, sir. And and that's what when we spoke about the Liberation Day parade, and
Mm-hmm.
We spoke about all those things. What was so special about this liberation as well is that not only after 2 years, right, that we have our Liberation Day again. After 2 years, we were able to get now our Manamko at the different memorials throughout the island. We started out with Menengan, and I think our last memorial will be Tiguian up in Jigo.
Yeah.
So that will close out all the Liberation Day festivities, and then all the memorial festivities as well. And same day as Liberation, what did we have? We had the unveiling of the Gold Star Memorial. Such a touching tribute on such a very special day. And it just this issue we just spoke about it, and in our future episodes we'll talk about other issues that are on our minds, and that will bring up
looking forward to it,
our platform, or our 7 pillars, different issues, ARP funding and things like that. But coming up on the trail, sir, first we got register to vote. We encourage everyone to exercise your right to vote. And you can register to vote at the Guam Election Commission on the second floor of the, what's the name of where they relocated from the GCIC building to the Tamuning.
I think they're behind Mega Drugs or somewhere in that location.
Or you can go onto their website at gec.guam.gov. Yeah. And also, qualified individuals may opt to register to vote or update their voter registration card when they apply for a driver's license or a Guam ID at Department of Revenue and Taxation. Or they can visit their village mayor's office with deputized voter registrars. As of June 2022, there are currently 55,332 registered voters on Guam. So we look for that number to continue to go. Yeah. We need people to come out and register to vote. And if they... Our listeners and viewers, if they have any questions, please, ask questions through social media. Go to Camacho Ada for Guam, at Camacho Ada for Guam, and engage with us on the trail by asking us questions through any of our social media platforms, or Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And your questions can be sent to us in a text, audio, or video. And we look forward to engaging with you in the digital space and answering your questions. And then lastly, sir, our upcoming events. Join us for our upcoming events this week, July 28th for the Roundup at Longhorn Steakhouse, with a fundraiser for Felix and Tony. And then early voting and homebound voting begins on July 28th for the 2022 primary elections. If there's anything else you want to say, sir, as we close up this episode of On the Trail with Felix and Tony, please.
Well, I just want to, again, thank you all, for anyone who would listen to this podcast. We thank you so much for allowing us into your time, and we look forward to discussing other issues as they come up on the trail with Tony and Felix.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. On the trail with Felix and Tony.
Hey, I like that switch up there, brother. Adios.
Adios.